Does that mean that no pony will remember what we did? Celestia shook her head and took Fluttershy's queen-side rook with her king-side bishop. Make no mistake, Fluttershy. You six will be remembered for what you did for the rest of time. You will be hailed as heroes for as long as Ponydom remembers who Nightmare Moon and Discord are, said Celestia. Fluttershy mulled this over as she captured Celestia's bishop with her queen. But you don't want that for us right now. But you don't want that for us right now? She asked. Celestia shook her head as she moved her queen-side knight to fork Fluttershy's queen and remaining rook. Do you? She asked. Fluttershy moved her queen out of danger, allowing Celestia to take her final rook before answering. No. No, I think that I do. No, I don't think that I do. But what about ponies like Rainbow Dash? I think that she would love it. Celestia took Fluttershy's king-side bishop with her queen before answering. I think that she would, for a time, she said. You think she would get tired of it? Asked Fluttershy. Celestia grimaced as Fluttershy took her king-side rook with her queen, checking her king. Yes, I do, she said before moving her king out of danger. She craves attention and excitement right now, but I feel that someday her desire for the spotlight will fade and she will want to settle down. As a retired Wonderbolt, she could do that. As a savior of Equestria, she would have the spotlight on her forever, said Fluttershy, moving a pawn down forward. Exactly, she said as she took Fluttershy's queen with a knight. At the loss of her queen, Fluttershy examined the chessboard. She only had a single bishop and a pair of pawns left in a way of protection, and Celestia still had 4 pawns. Both knights, her queen, a king, and 1 rook. She sighed and took one of Celestia's pawns, allowing Celestia to checkmate her with her queen. The victorious princess smiled and once again reset the chessboard. Well, would you like to play again, or would you like to play something else? She asked. Well, how about checkers? Interrupted Luna with a hint of laughter in her voice. Our dear sister could not defeat a blind chicken at checkers. Be quiet, Luna, that was one time, said Celestia before she looked back to Fluttershy. You were saying? She asked. Well, one more game couldn't hurt, said Fluttershy. I mean, if you want. I'm up for it if you are, said Celestia. Fluttershy nodded and moved the pawn in front of her king's side knight 1 space forward. So to continue our previous conversation, said Fluttershy. Oh, wait. So to continue our previous conversation, said Fluttershy. What about Pinkie Pie? Wouldn't she see it as one big party? Celestia laughed and moved the pawn in front of her queen forward 1 space. I think that as much as Pinkie Pie loves to laugh and make friends, she could not do it on a large scale. There are moments when I wonder if it takes more energy for Pinkie Pie to be Pinkie Pie than it does for me to run the country. It would not be long before she burned out completely of that kind of attention. And Applejack and Rarity would both be overworked because every pony would want to buy their apples and dresses just from them, said Fluttershy. Now you're getting it, said Fluttershy with a nod. Now you're getting it, said Celestia with a nod. Although I'm curious, said Fluttershy as she took one of Celestia's pawns with her her king-side knight. How did you do it? Cover it up, I mean. Swamp gas and weather balloons, said Luna. Fluttershy looked at Celestia confused, who just rolled her eyes at Luna. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, Fluttershy, said Celestia before she returned her attention back to the game. But suffice to say, it took quite a bit of work. Fluttershy heard Luna giggle a bit, but decided not to question it. She castled left before Celestia spoke up once more. You know, this brings up a subject that I've wanted to discuss with one of you, she said as she copied Fluttershy's castle. Oh, said Fluttershy. Yes, said Celestia. I want to ask you about Discord, or more specifically, what it was like to be under his control. Fluttershy tensed up and whimpered slightly. Celestia's eyes widened. She tried to change the topic. Of course, we certainly don't have to talk about that if... It was very cold, said Fluttershy sadly. Cold? Said Celestia interestedly. Yes, very cold. I felt like I would never feel the feeling of the warm sun shining across the land ever again, and it made me so angry, said Fluttershy as she moved her queen one square to the right. Why did it make you angry? I think it was because Discord made me feel that way. She wanted to twist her... Sorry. He wanted to twist our elements around, and I think he knew that if I was really angry, then I would do unkind things. And you did, said Celestia sadly, capturing one of Fluttershy's rooks with a knight. Yes, said Fluttershy as she captured Celestia's final knight with her other rook. But there was still a part of my mind that tried to get past all of that. I think that's the part of my mind that Twilight used the memory spell on. My mind was constantly resisting Discord's influence. It was, said Celestia interestedly as she captured Fluttershy's queen with her kingside bishop. I didn't know that was possible. I guess it is, said Fluttershy. I think that it was... Checkmate, by the way. The fact that we were friends that helped my mind through that tough time. Celestia smiled at Fluttershy. Yes, I think so too. Celestia froze in mid-sentence. Hold on a minute, did you say checkmate? Fluttershy shrank back a bit, but she nodded. Oh, well, yes, I checkmated you with my rook here, said Fluttershy. In that instant, the two heard Princess Luna quickly stand up and bolt toward the duo. She arrived with a wild look on her face. Did you just checkmate Tia? She asked in an odd voice. I don't know if she... She did, said Luna. Her eyes widened with surprise as she turned to Fluttershy. Our sister has not lost a game of chess in over 400 years. Oh, sorry, whispered Fluttershy nervously. Be not sorry, child, for you have truly achieved an amazing feat here, said Luna happily. How did you do it? I admit I'm curious, too, said Celestia. Fluttershy shrank back more and whimpered. She was a bit intimidated by the fact that she was sitting alone in a room with the goddesses of the sun and moon themselves, one of whom she had just beaten at chess for the first time in 400 years. Now both of them were looking at her expectantly. Oh, well, you see, she began. Speak up, child, we cannot hear you, said Luna excitedly. Fluttershy took a deep breath and just decided to bite the bullet and explain her victory. They weren't letting her out until she did. Well, I used the first two games to learn about who you were as a player. The first one taught me that you weren't afraid to be aggressive against an opponent that you viewed to be as weaker or less skilled, while the second one taught me more about your strategies. I noticed that you favored your knights over your bishops in terms of offensive strategies, while you always tried to keep one rook and at least one bishop back for defensive measures. You view the other bishop as largely expendable, which is why you use it as a kamikaze piece. Both princesses looked like they were about to have heart attacks, one from shock and the other from joy, but Fluttershy continued onward. You castle early to get your other rook on the offensive, to back up your knights and any pawns that you may feel may be able to get you another queen later. The queen herself you switch from being an offensive piece to a defensive one when you feel the situation calls for it. Hold on. Let us catch up, said Luna, who was eagerly writing down every word that Fluttershy was saying. Before either Celestia or Fluttershy could respond, there came a knock on the door. The three turned toward it, and Luna sighed. We'll answer it, she said. Fluttershy looked at Celestia with a raised eyebrow. I thought no pony knew about this place, she said. Oh, the entire staff knows about it, just in case they need to reach us in an emergency. No pony but Luna and I can get in, though, said Celestia, who was still examining the game board. Just as Fluttershy was about to answer, both of them heard Rainbow Dash's voice. Rained out? Can you believe it? A Wonderbolt performance was rained out. How lazy are the Canterlot Pegasi? Now, Rainbow, darling, said Rarity soothingly. They're doing all that they can to get the weather under control. You know that even the team of Pegasi, the weather can still be Oh, gosh, sorry. That's Twilight. You know that even with a team of Pegasi, the weather can still be unpredictable, said Twilight. Rainbow harumphed, but the group stopped talking about it when they noticed Fluttershy and Celestia sitting at the table. Twilight smiled and went over to talk to her mentor. Before she could get a word out, she saw the chess set between the two of them, and her jaw dropped. Princess Celestia, how many games did you play against Fluttershy? She asked nervously. Just 3, responded Celestia. Twilight grimaced a bit. She got your whole strategy down in those 3, didn't she? Did she ever? Said Luna, as she rejoined the conversation. I've never seen anything like it. Neither have I, said Celestia. Applejack raised her eyebrow at Twilight. Twi? Didn't you tell the princess here to never play more than one game of chess against Fluttershy? She asked. Yes, because that definitely came up at some point, said Twilight sarcastically. Wait, said Celestia, this is normal? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, said Rainbow nonchalantly. Fluttershy routinely destroys every pony she meets at chess after game 2 or 3. She beat me in 19 moves once. Fluttershy, how did you ever become so good at chess? Said Celestia incredulously. Well, said Fluttershy nervously, it all started when... She was immediately silenced when Pinkie Pie cleared her throat. The group turned to look at her as she glared at Fluttershy and mouthed, Forever. Said Fluttershy. It's too long of a story. The room was silent as they all examined the chessboard and pondered the development that Fluttershy could defeat the goddess of the sun at chess on a whim. Suddenly, the pieces all flew back to their original spot, and a determined look spread over Celestia's face. I want to play again, she said. Twilight could hardly bear to watch what was going on in front of her. It was just too painful to see, and she could barely believe that it was actually happening. Applejack had tilted her hat low over her eyes and was trying to both watch the game and avoid seeing it all at all costs at the same time. Rarity had become very interested in her hair as she too could not bear to watch what was happening. Rainbow and Pinkie both merely stared at the board, their mouths open in total shock. Even Princess Luna looked a little uncomfortable. Together, the 6 of them watched as Fluttershy's queen and her remaining rook chased Celestia's king across the board, while Celestia was trying to block her with her remaining bishop and 2 pawns. Celestia was frantically trying to find a way to stalemate the game. Tia, just give up, said Luna as Fluttershy took one of Celestia's pawns. She managed this after 5 minutes. You can't win. I know that, Luna, said Celestia. I think that I can... Checkmate, Fluttershy, said Fluttershy. Luna, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity all cheered Fluttershy's victory, and they gathered around to congratulate her. Twilight walked over to Celestia sympathetically. You aren't mad at you, are you? She asked nervously. Celestia smiled and shook her head. When you've been alive as long as I have, you learn very fast to not care about something as insignificant as this. Still, losing a chess game for the first time in 400 years still hurts a little. Before Twilight could respond, she saw Fluttershy get pushed off the chair she was in, only to be replaced by Luna, who eagerly brought her notes over to her. We think you may be slipping, Tia, she said eagerly, as she reset the chessboard. What say you to a game? Celestia smiled and nodded, and the game began. Luna got demolished. All right. Well, that's the end of the story. Fluttershy and Celestia Play Chess. I hope you enjoyed it, everyone. It looks like I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to wrap this up real quick. I'll do a quick recap in a separate video here in just a little bit. I'll see you there, every pony.